Hello and welcome to our Family Essentials session. I know many of you have joined Bridget Reardon and myself all summer long on Fridays, so thanks for joining us on a Thursday. Today we have some guests from the Office for Undergraduate Education and Bridget from our family and parent programs, and we're going to walk through some really great information about how to support your student academically and if other things come up throughout the semester. So we're going to jump right in. My name is Sherry Obrentz. I'm an Associate Dean in the Office for Undergraduate Education, otherwise known as Academic Affairs. Today we're joined by Joanne Brzezinski, who's our Senior Associate Dean in the Office for Undergraduate Education, and Dan Dillard. As many of you know, Zoom has its wonderful things and also challenges. So Dan's on the phone, but he is with us loud and clear as well. And Bridget Reardon, who is our AVP in Parent and Family Programs. And so this is a dynamic trio that will really walk us through all the great resources that are available to your students this fall and over the next few years. So we will go ahead and jump right in. Okay, and starting off, I'll let everybody kind of introduce themselves and their topics, but we're going to reiterate the advising network, some tips for online learning. Courses will be online this fall. Classes and academic support, the liberal arts and the GERs, that's my favorite topic. Degree options and majors, a lot about transition and how that takes time in any year, but especially this year as well. Anticipating the highs and lows, supporting your college student, and the academic calendar. So I will turn it over so we can get started.
Good deal. Thank you, Dean Obrant. So hello, I hope everyone can hear me. Again, apologies for having to call in. I believe my kindergartner broke Zoom with his kindergarten class this morning. But yes, I will be discussing a couple things with you, the advising network, and then just some tips from my own experience. Like Sherry said, I'm a dean in the Office for Undergraduate Education, and my areas include things like academic advising and academic support. I also teach a section of PACE class, so it's quite possible your student might actually be with me this fall. But, this advising network will be one of the first big changes from high school for your student. I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, back in the 20th century, I only had a single guidance counselor. Here at Emory, your student will have not one advisor, but many. And this includes faculty, staff, and peers, your fellow students. So building a network takes time. Some people will be assigned to your students, some will be acquired, but your student will ultimately integrate advice from a number of different sources. And we instill expectations from the beginning that students should reach out to many different people on campus, depending on their need and the situation. And this advising network will grow and will change with your student. For example, all Emory College students are assigned a pre-major faculty advisor when they arrive on campus. This pre-major faculty advisor will serve as the primary student advisor until a major has been declared. And then upon declaration of a major, a faculty major advisor in the chosen field of study will be assigned to them. But in addition to this, and to these faculty advisors, our Office for Undergraduate Education offers professional academic advisors who assist students with everything from course planning to degree process, navigating challenges or concerns that may occur, et cetera, et cetera. And they can provide referrals to appropriate campus partners to aid students in resolving concerns. So that's the first big change. Sherry, if you want to skip ahead to the next slide. All right, and now I'd like to share just a few tips for you and your student. First, and Dean Brzezinski will talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but if your student is attending all online, it is okay to start with 12 credits. If they enroll for more and decide that they need to withdraw from one or two, they can work with us, with their advisor, to determine the best option for them. Just remember that everything this year, the first year, counts toward graduation. So it really is a great time to explore. But just some more concrete tips for you and your student. First, balance is important. Really, avoid overloading yourself, especially this first semester. It's really key here. Your student has likely never taken a college course before, and they're going to have plenty of other demands on their time this fall. Generally, we just expect students to complete 30 credits a year, and that includes summers. So taking 12 to 15 credits this first term is perfect. And when choosing classes, just remember that for every hour one spends in class, you need to be scheduling or blocking off 2 to 3 hours of work outside of classes. And this includes online courses. That means for every 3 credit course, students need to be budgeting 6 to 9 hours of out-of-class work every week. Now, this next one, connecting with instructors early in the semester. Bear with me, I've got a lot to say about that. It really is never too early to start building relationships. This is just so important for 2 reasons. First, it helps for that particular course. I've been teaching college students for about a dozen years, and there's a marked difference in performance between those who reach out early and regular and those who wait until the end of the semester. But second, it's beneficial for when your student's applying to graduate school, or professional school, or their first job out of college, and they need a recommendation letter. Over the years, I've been approached by a number of students asking for letters where I struggle to say anything more than, dear committee members, this student was in my class. Sincerely, Dean Dillard. I'm only half joking here. Shyness is real. I was there as a freshman too, but we encourage our students to connect, even if it means just sending an email, introducing oneself, letting the professor know they're thinking about this or that component of the course. In PACE, we actually teach your student proper etiquette for this sort of thing. For example, starting an email with, dear Dr. Dillard, instead of, hey, Dan, followed by a winky smiley face. In all seriousness, most of us who teach undergraduates, we do this because we genuinely like working with students. We're typically idealists who prize learning and knowledge and conversation, so it really isn't a bother, when they reach out to us to talk about this topic or that research interest, you name it. It's all part of the liberal arts experience. A couple last points. One, your student really needs to create a schedule and then manage that time wisely. In high school, students typically have a clear, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. block that often includes study hall. In college, however, students have blocks of free time between classes. They might have a morning class followed by a couple-hour break, and I'm making scare quotes around break, then another class followed by another break. And then I'll end up having to meet with these students who use that break time to play video games or cultivate their social media feeds rather than study. So, create a schedule, but then also create a sacred study space as well, especially if you're living at home this semester. After the last months, I'm sure most of us can personally attest to how important that is when your home and your office are one and the same. I'm struggling with it as we speak. And then lastly, students are able to meet with advisors when they need to. We really have, on-demand virtual advising services Monday through Friday. We also have robust online, academic support resources. And I think that segues nicely actually to my boss, Dean Joanne Brzezinski. So I will turn it over from there.
Hi, I'm Joanne Brzezinski. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education in Emory College of Arts and Sciences. I've been at Emory since 1992. I came as a professor in political science, but I've been working in administration for the last 20 years. I have also had two sons who've attended Emory and fortunately graduated and are gainfully employed. So it's a successful experience all around. But the result is I've been a parent too, and I've been exactly where you are. And I know that sometimes it's figuring out how to support your students, how to give them advice, even though they don't want to hear it, how to support the choices that they want to make is actually a real challenge. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the academic requirements and experience here to help you be able to give that kind of advice. Your students this first semester are going to be enrolled in somewhere between 12 and 17 hours. 12 hours makes them full-time. And because students need to finish somewhere between 15 and 17 hours a semester to graduate in 8 semesters, we're trying to keep them in that range in this first semester. After the first semester, they can go up, they can add additional hours in the semester, but in the first semester, there is a transition that's going on. And so we really try to keep students at 17 hours as their maximum. One of the things that students are doing in their first year is they are exploring the curriculum. They are figuring out what it is that they want to do. Even students who actually think that they come in with a really strong sense of their plans often discover when they actually take classes that what an anthropology or biology or art history course is not exactly what they expect. And so the exploration that they're doing is important both for those who are undecided and those who have actually a very clear path. So a lot of what they're doing is they're completing their general education requirements. They're looking at things that they're taking things that are potential majors and minors. And the way in which they pull all of that together, I think, is part of the trick of having a successful first year. We have a lot of support and resources that are available to students. And I think the other thing that's really important for first year students to really understand is that academic support is not just for students who are struggling and having problems. Academic support is there as a resource to help students be successful. So the most successful students are looking at their schedule, taking the things that they want, but then also engaging in academic support in ways that help support their success. So we have a lot of resources that are available. Dan just talked about academic advising resources, about reaching out to professors, but we also have resources available beyond that. On the Office for Undergraduate Education website, we have links to our academic support programs, which include academic coaches. Academic coaches help with kind of general issues like time management. Peer tutors are available for one-on-one tutoring for individual courses, and this is free of charge to students. And then we also have group sessions led by learning assistants that are for specific courses, usually in the STEM fields, biology and chemistry and math, for example, but also in some other fields as well. And these are weekly sessions that students can attend that give them opportunities to work through problems or ask questions about topics to peer leaders who've been trained by the faculty in that field. And finally, we have support for writing through the Writing Center. Students who are working on writing in any course can take their writing in and get feedback about the structure of their paper, about the way in which they've approached the problem, all of those things. And I will say this year, our academic support resources are available online. So whether your students are on campus or they are at home, they can access that academic support. So a first-year student creates a schedule and then finds ways to use that academic support to support them through the semester. Your students, before they graduate, need to complete the general education requirements that are listed here. The ones that are in blue are ones that they will be completing this year. And we've actually tried to help with that in the way in which we've enrolled students. So up in the top left corner, our first year seminars and first year writing requirements. Every student has been enrolled in one or the other, our first year seminar or first year writing. In addition, all students have been enrolled in the 1 credit hour health course and the 1 credit hour PACE course, which help students start successfully in the fall semester. The other courses they will be taking over the course of 4 years, and they don't have to complete them all this year. A lot of times first year students have an approach to their schedule and to their education that they always have to be checking off a box, completing a requirement. And they really don't realize that they have a long time to actually complete those requirements. And so in the first year, taking a course simply because it's something that excites you, that you think might be a potential major or minor, that's a good enough reason to take the course, that you're excited about it. Most courses are going to help you towards the general education requirement, but that idea of focusing on what excites you and what interests you is something that I think is also a change from high school. High school has these very set pathways that students find. In college, students need to complete some general education requirements, but their choice of courses really should be driven by the things that excite them and interest them academically.
Joanne, can I interrupt and maybe just ask
Sure.
you follow-up questions about this? We had talked about enrolling students in either a seminar or writing, and I know there have been a lot of questions about, do I have to get them all done in the fall, or do I have some options? So just as a reminder that not all of our students complete these in the fall. These are really the first year requirements. And any thoughts about just being really exploratory, especially those seminars?
Yeah, no, actually, for the first year seminars, we don't necessarily want students to take first year seminars that are related to their majors and minors. This is an opportunity for students to take an academic course in a subject that is really exciting the faculty member who is teaching it. And we do want them to reach beyond what they might be taking in their other courses. We have about 60% of our seminars offered in the fall semester and 40% in the spring. So not all students will be taking their freshman seminar in the fall semester. And in fact, some students end up taking 2 seminars. They take one in the fall and the one in the spring, because in the spring there ends up being one that they're just excited about. And so that's actually, that's perfectly fine. We try to let the students who haven't taken seminars get first choice in the spring, but that is something that people can do. We similarly have some of our students take first year writing courses in the fall, and some students wait until the spring. And again, our scheduling assumes that there's going to be a mix between those courses. And I will say this is true of a lot of courses, that we have some courses that follow a strict fall spring schedule. So chemistry 150 is offered in the fall, it's not offered in the spring. But Econ 101 is offered in both fall and the spring. And so one of the things to know about course selection is what that schedule is. And that information is available to your students in our in the Opus college search system. And so if they're concerned that they need to be in a course, asking that question, is this going to be offered again in the spring, is really important. And particularly for the things that you have to complete over the first year, health and PACE are things you have to do in the fall, but freshman seminar and first year writing are things that you can complete either in the fall or the spring.
Thanks, Joanne. And before we move on to the next slide, I see some great questions about, thank you for sharing this advice. Are we also sharing this information with students directly, especially about the academic support, that it really is the norm at Emory and we encourage it. And I will say, I'm seeing a head nod from Bridget, a smile from Joanne, absolutely. But when we get to the end about how you can support your students as well, we hope that these are conversations that you're also having with them. So we tell them, you tell them, their friends tell them, the seniors tell them. But as we know, transition takes time. And so it sometimes does take a little time for that message to sink in, even though it has been presented many different ways.
You know, the PACE program, one of the reasons why we have students attend the PACE program over the fall semester is because repetition of messages and giving it at the right time is really important. And so we're starting out by telling you this. We're also telling your children about the importance of all of this. But really this hits home about the middle of September when they're having their first tests and they start to become anxious about this. And so having the PACE program allows us to think about what messages are important to students at what time and to re-deliver them. And one of the things that's helpful for you is to actually remember these messages. And when you hear those, either an anxious phone call or an anxious conversation over the dinner table, that you can remind them about the resources that are available. And really being proactive about reaching out is actually an important learning experience for students. The fact that part of being a successful student is actually reaching for these resources, I think is a really important message that you can reinforce.
Before we move away from the GERs too, I think this is a great other plug about messages. I'm sure many of our parents or family are feeling either that we're sending too many messages or not enough messages, and that we've been hearing that from our students as well. But we do send out to our first year students 2 really important messages every week. On Monday, the College Weekly, which is a summary of all of the deadlines and neat things happening in the college. And then we send a specific message follow up just to first year students on Tuesdays to really reiterate. But we're already seeing that some of our students are not checking their Emory emails and not reading those messages. And so that would be another great plug if your students are asking you where to go or what to do. Reminding them that they're getting these really important messages directed to them on Mondays and Tuesdays.
And just so you know, we typically post that College Weekly to the portal, so you can see it too. So we usually do it maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday, but you can remind your student that, by the way, did you see that in the College Weekly? And I think that would be great reinforcement.
Yeah, I saw in the chat a question about how long students can drop courses. The add drop swap period is up until August 26th. So finding that sense of balance and figuring out, you know, which courses are the right courses for students, they have a little bit of time to do that. And so that's something that's very important. This slide about degree options really makes the point that we have students who are following all sorts of different pathways here at Emory. We have some students who will be in Emory College the entire period of time and receive a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science in different fields of study. Students can have either 1 major, 2 majors, or a major or minor, and that really depends on the nature of their interests. And there is no right answer. One of the most innovative student curricula that I ever saw was a student who had 1 major, but then she had taken courses related to that major. She was interested in Arabic, and she'd taken courses related to that major in just about every field of study that you can imagine. And so she really used that 1 major to its fullest. But on the other hand, for other people, finding 2 majors that fit together well or that contrast with one another can be really the right choice. We have other students who move on to other schools at Emory, either the business school for a BBA program, and BBA students can also have a major in the college if they choose. So in the same way, they can have a BBA concentration and a second major in the college. And then we have other students who are going on to the School of Nursing. We do actually have a dual degree program with the School of Nursing that allows students to finish a major in the college and then go on to the nursing school. That's a 5-year program, but it fits for students who have dual interests and want to actually pursue both. In addition to that, we have a dual degree program with Georgia Tech. So a number of students do 3 years here at Emory and then 2 more years, or depending on the nature of engineering, sometimes 3 years at Georgia Tech and 2 at Emory. So, but there's a lot of mixtures for that. And we have a strong relationship with that Georgia Tech program and academic advisors who can help students do a good start. I do want to mention something that is not on this slide, is we have a growing number of what we call 4+1 programs. And these are programs that allow a student to earn not only a bachelor's degree, but a master's in 5 years. And generally what happens in those programs is at the end of the junior year, you're admitted to the 4+1 program. And in the senior year, you're doing half graduate work and half undergraduate work. And so it's a great way for students to be able to pursue things in more depth if they're interested in this. And this includes everything from public health to biology to computer science. There's a number of different options that students, to law actually. We have a JM program. And so if your student is interested in that, probably in their sophomore year or early junior year, they should be talking to an advisor about what the options are in the 4+1 programs. There's a question in the chat about pre-health students and should they take 2 majors or dual degrees. I think that really depends on the specific student, and Sherry may have some thoughts about that, but this is something that is really specific. You can, again, do 1 major, you can do 2 majors.
I'll chime in and just say, whether you're pre-health, pre-med, pre-business, or anything, all majors are worthwhile. And it is okay to absolutely graduate with 1. So doubling up doesn't make you more competitive for anything, especially if it's just saying I have a double major. That doesn't have a lot of weight to it. So if students really have interest in 2 areas, go for it. If they can fit it in, that's fantastic. And hopefully they're passionate about it. But it doesn't look better. It does not make you more competitive for anything, especially in the pre-health world, but in probably other things as well. And there is some questions about, again, are we sharing this with your students? We talk a lot about this in our PACE class, about really finding your own academic passions and how every single major, minor, or area of study maps onto a career in the world, right? It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not a linear path. As many of us know, our paths were not linear either. And so hopefully those are other conversations that you can be having with them as they're figuring out where their interests lie.
Yeah, and before I hand off on the next slide, before I hand off to my friend Bridget, I do want to say, your students right now are high school students attending college courses. It takes time to become a college student in the sense of really understanding what to expect, taking responsibility for your courses. They're learning how to do it this semester, and that transition from being a high school student where everything is laid out for you, you have limited pathways, you don't have a lot of choices. They're in class less than they are in high school because a lot of the work that they're doing for their college courses, they do outside of class. There is a real transition that is going on academically that they're really going to be going through this semester. It's amazing to me, looking at the students who come to us in August, how different they are as students when we hit May. And they go through a really amazing transition in their first year. Learn how to study. They learn how to manage their time. They learn how to take responsibility for doing the readings, other sorts of things that are expected out of class. But it is a transition. And some students do it more easily than others. And so helping them kind of go through that process and take advantage of the resources that we offer is a way in which you can help them be successful in that transition. And with this, I'll hand off to my colleague who is coming to us from Campus Life.
Thanks, Joanne. Yes, I'm Bridget Guernsey Reardon. I've talked with a lot of you this summer with Sherry. And yes, transition takes time. And we know that it'll take your student time. And they're doing transition to a college environment during a pandemic. So they have something they'll always have on them, as we even did this during a pandemic. So we know, and we're wanting to give them the resources they need so that they can succeed. That's why we admitted them to Emory. So we know that it takes time, and we appreciate your help in helping them. And we also know that you give them unconditional love. And so when you see the next slide, we'll explain the highs and lows of college life. You saw this in high school anyhow, but now they're doing so much more independently, and they're not having you to count on as much. Many of your students are working at home with you, so you will have a unique view of what they're going through. However, just know that after the lows comes a few more highs, and it might be that they talk to a classmate that helps them navigate something, or they talk to an RA if they're living on campus. But what they do typically, just so you know, as a parent, and I know Joanne mentioned this as a parent, and I have a college graduate, is we give them unconditional love. So sometimes they will unload on us, and we're going to talk you through what we hope that you can help them navigate through Emory. So when we go to the next slide, I'll show you that. We talk about what to do about academics and advising. So Dan, were you going to talk about this one, or did you want me to talk about this one?
Well, let me start, and then I think that we can talk through the answers.
Gotcha.
One of the things that that goes on in the first year in that transition that Bridget was talking about is students take more responsibility for themselves than they do in high school. And the tendency for us as parents is to want to take over their concerns and resolve them for them. But part of being an adult is actually learning the skills to help resolve problems yourself. And one of the things that we would like to encourage you to do, whether your child is here on campus or your child is at home, is when you're faced with questions and concerns, is to ask questions back rather than giving them answers, and really help them take responsibility for taking the steps that they need to take. And so, you know, for instance, on this slide, the first question is, my student doesn't get the courses they want or need. Actually, if you hear this from your child, one of the crucial questions is whether they want or they need the course that they're struggling with. You know, sometimes what a student wants is they want a 10 a.m. course, and there's a similar course that meets at 8 a.m. What they need is perhaps the course. What they want is the 10 a.m. section. So helping them understand the differences between wants and needs. Sherry had noted that some courses they can take in the spring instead of the fall. So if it's not available in the fall, is there a reason they can't wait till spring? Asking those kind of questions, helping them reflect about the choices they're making, can actually be a very good response to that. Dan, do you want to chime in on some of the issues about connecting with your advisor, for instance?
Sure. Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, so this is a question we often hear, that a student doesn't feel that it's the best fit because the pre-major faculty advisor is not in their expected area of interest. They don't intend to major in that department, that sort of thing, which is fine, right? We actually intentionally encourage students to connect with faculty outside of their areas, just because it provides a fuller more nuanced perspective of academic life and all the different areas of study and so on. But if it really is just a really bad fit, or if the person's not accessible, you name it, by all means, come talk to us. We can help get you connected with someone else in the same department or in a different department. Like I said, the pre-major faculty advisor is not the end-all be-all for your students. They're going to have a dozen different people, on whom they can rely and draw upon for services and resources. So send them to us, to the Office for Undergraduate Education, and we'll take care of it from there.
Yeah, my oldest son was a physics major. I knew he wanted to be a physics major from day one, but his pre-major advisor was someone in theater. And as it turned out, it was really a lovely match, because he could talk to his pre-major advisor about things that he wasn't talking about with his physics professor. And it really helped broaden his perspective about the things that he might want to take. He ended up graduating with an Asian studies second major because he discovered he really loved Asian films. And so that became something that he really wanted to pursue. So sometimes having a pre-major advisor who's not in your own field is a positive thing. And there are availability to get advising information for someone other than your pre-major advisor. So it can be a plus or a minus. If a student is struggling academically, again, I think this is a good place to ask questions. Have you gone and talked with your professor is always a good one. What kind of academic support resources have you investigated? Those kinds of questions, asking them what they are going to do and helping them figure out a plan of action for addressing the academic problems that they're having is actually, I think, a really good piece of support for you. But encouraging them to take the steps to go to office hours, for instance, which will be available virtually this semester, or talk to their professor about their test if they have questions about why they didn't get full points on a particular question. Those kinds of questions can be actually very helpful. And Dan, I'll let you tackle the illness and other health concerns.
If you don't mind, I think I'll jump in on this one.
Sorry, everyone.
Sure.
Yeah,
we'll let Bridget.
If you don't, Dan, why don't you address the part I think would be really helpful for families to know what to do about illness or health concerns academically, and then I'll jump in after you and talk about how they can do that socially. So go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bridget. So, there's a few different scenarios, that we handle when we're talking about illness. If we're talking about short term, right, this could be anything from a student having a minor cold to, stubbing their toe, which we've actually seen, believe it or not, you name it. Then typically we ask students just to handle this directly with their faculty member. Oftentimes faculty will ask the student to submit just the honor code statement saying, yes, I'm missing class for this or that reason. And that's enough. They don't need a dean permission. They don't need a doctor's note. This is just something kind of handled on the ground between them. If we're talking, a longer term illness, say a student is going to miss, 3, 4, 5 class meetings, they have to have surgery or they have mono or something like this. In those instances, then that is where our office will step in. We can collect, any medical documentation, doctor's notes that are needed, that sort of thing. And then we will liaise directly with the faculty member just to say that we have confirmed and that we are supportive of, any flexibility and leniency the faculty can provide around, making up missed work or classes or what have you. And when we're talking about a missed, say, midterm or final exam, then we actually can step in and provide an official dean's excuse. But, that's really rare, far and few between. I think for now that about covers it. Obviously, God forbid if your son or daughter is diagnosed with COVID, then there's a entirely different support plan and process in place for that, which involves Emory's student health services and campus life, et cetera, et cetera. But that won't be needed for your student. Yeah. I have no concerns.
And if it is, we have a plan to help both students who are in quarantine and isolation to keep up with their courses. Instructors are recording courses and taking notes to help students if they can't attend class. We hope that most of the students in online classes will be able to continue, but students who are too ill to continue will be able to manage their academic work. And I do want to let Bridget talk about that issue outside of the academic concerns, because when a student is ill, there's a lot more than just the academic issues.
Thank you, Joanne. Yes, as many of you heard in some of our other family webinars this summer, and if you weren't on this, I'll give you this now. We have a patient portal for all students. And so your students have paid a wellness fee. And so the patient portal gives them access. Even students who are living on campus, we ask them to go through the patient portal and go through that, tell what their symptoms might be, tell what their situation is, and then our healthcare professionals will get back to them and communicate with them what the best steps are. And also with our counseling center. Our counseling center is doing virtual counseling appointments. They did those all throughout the spring and the summer. And what we're finding is some people are accessing the services that might not have done that before. Sometimes it's difficult to walk to the counseling center. However, to have that real privacy of just being on a phone call or doing it on a Zoom has been something that a lot of students have taken advantage of. So we have health services for every student and they're doing them virtually. It's different than what we're used to. However, we're still able to treat students, give you the information you need, and help the students with their health issues. Now moving on to social and personal development. As all of you know, the college environment is big about, we want you to get involved. We want you to be a student in organization. We want you to do different activities, and things will be different this year. We've heard pivot a lot. So all the student organization activities will be virtual. However, what we're finding from colleagues at other institutions that have started before us is that there's some uptick with students getting involved because they can do so easily. They don't have to walk across campus in the rain, or they don't have to be in a room of people that they don't know at all. There is a little bit of a safety in doing some things by Zoom. And then there's also what we're finding too with some other student organizations at other schools is there's also some more meaningful conversations, because oftentimes the conversations are one-on-one. So encourage your students to get involved. This weekend, we're having the virtual student activities fair. It typically is out on McDonough Field, but of course we can't do that this year, but they will have hundreds of student organizations have already signed up for it. And your students can look and see what's out there, what is interesting to them. We will post information about it on the parent portal too. So your students will have that through you if you want to forward that to that, but they're getting that. They are getting this information. So please encourage them to get involved. There might be times when your student feels overwhelmed because there's so much to pick from at Emory. However, ask your student or encourage your student to pick what the focal points are of what they want to get involved. Right now we have student organizations that are focusing on politics. We're in a political year. We have student organizations that are focusing on your faith. So sometimes students want to learn more about a different faith. Or they might want to learn something like a hobby. They might want to figure out how they can be better at chess. There's all kind of different opportunities for them. And if your student is feeling isolated, which might be happening from home, it's a great way to get involved in one of the student organizations because everyone is in the same boat. All these organizations will be virtual, all their activities. The Student Programming Council will also be doing campus-wide activities, and they will be getting information about that too. We have a communications hub that will have all kind of information about student organization involvement. One of the questions we list here is about exploring career interests. The Career Center has been virtual since March, and they've had a robust following from students. So they were fortunate in that they still were doing so much outreach for students, and your students should, first year, they should start looking at the Career Center and finding out, okay, what is the typical time for the career fair? It'll be easy for them this year. They don't have to get dressed up to walk over to the career fair. They can just have a sneak preview and look at what the companies are that come to the career fair, who posts internships, who posts opportunities. Have them get that feel early on, because they might not get an internship after their first year at Emory, but they'll probably want one after their second and third years. So have them get an idea of who our employers are. We have a lot of companies from all over the world, and they're seeking smart Emory students. So tell your students to start looking at that. Handshake is the tool that they use, the online tool, and have your student get registered through the Career Center. We also talk about how to connect with professionals and alumni. That is being done through our advancement and alumni engagement area, and also through the Career Center. They work closely with the Career Center. They're in tandem about what they're doing. So probably best to start through the Career Center and figure out what their interests are and what their, what they want to talk to people about. And we have alums, all, like we say, always, we have alums all over the world wanting to help Emory students. And so,
and let me add that also departments and programs are also interested in helping students connect both with faculty, with other students and alumni. And so, in fact, one of the things that is going to be important for students this time is to look at what the opportunities are and really take advantage of them. And I think that this is particularly important for students who are at home right now, that they really feel a part of the Emory community. On the plus side, I think that there are opportunities for students to connect with alumni that are expanded beyond what we've had before. There was just an announcement yesterday about the Arts and Social Justice Fellows, which are being introduced this fall. And one of them I know quite well, who's an alumni, Garrett Turner, who lives in New York, is an actor, and is the most amazing person you will ever meet. And our students are having the opportunity to be in touch with Garrett, in part because of this very unusual environment. And so for both students who are on campus and off, I think that in part the trick is going to be to encourage them to take advantage of those opportunities. The PACE calendar will be a good place to look at many of those opportunities, particularly the ones related to departmental events. There will be some things that will be available in person to people who are on campus, but I think that there will be lots of virtual opportunities, both with student organizations and student groups, but also departments and programs.
for our next slide, we can probably all chime in on this, and I'll just start off because a lot of it is also academic, is when you're working with your student, sometimes it's easier just to say, tell me about your day, and then see what they give you. I found having a college student, I could maybe get away with 3 questions at a time, because then I felt like, you know, she thought I was badgering her. And you're asking me so many questions, and it does feel overwhelming. So perhaps you take the cues from your student and ask how their day was, ask what opportunities came their way, and then try to help shape what they tell you into helping them find the solutions. Like Joanne mentioned earlier, this is all about developing them into adults. And it is a different time, and it is everything is so new to them. Even if they are at home, everything is new to them. So they will get overwhelmed. That is going to happen. However, just let them know that you give them the unconditional love, and then help them come up with the answers. And also, I always like to give the family@emory.edu email. I find parents oftentimes have easy questions that help me and help us at Emory realize what we need to get out to you, what information we need to get to you. So don't hesitate to send an email. I answer those, and oftentimes it's just sending you a quick link, and then you have the information you need because maybe you just didn't put in the right Google search. So don't hesitate to do that. And then I'll let my colleagues talk about the academic.
Yeah, well, and I will say the other thing that I learned as a parent is that sometimes you give your student what you think is the best advice and what they should do, and they choose to go a different direction. And that doesn't always mean that it's a wrong choice for their students, but it's very hard as a parent to accept that your child might choose to do things in a slightly different way than you do. And so that's actually part of supporting them, is letting them make a decision that's a different one than you would make, and deal with the consequences, sometimes very positive consequences. One of my sons, here I am, I'm in academic affairs. I know what students need to take to graduate, and he kept putting off courses that I thought that he should take. In the end, he graduated just fine. And the fact that he did it differently than I would was not a problem. But as a parent, I had to learn when to let him make a different choice than I thought that he should make. And that to me is supporting your college student in making decisions and dealing with the consequences is sometimes a very positive thing. Sometimes students actually do need some help in figuring out how to take a step forward. And so asking them what resources they've accessed, asking them whether they've talked to their professor, encouraging them to get in touch with CAPS if they're feeling a lot of stress and mental anxiety. I think those sorts of things can be very helpful. Helping them access those resources can be important as well. Dan or Bridget, I don't know if you have other advice.
Yeah, like Dan, you've got the kindergartner, and you can really give us some online or remote education.
I know we're coming up close on time, so I will not get on a soapbox for too long, but I do want to make a plug. If anyone is looking for a book to read as the summer winds down, I would highly recommend iGen, subtitled something like Why Today's Super Connected Kids Are Growing Up Completely Unprepared for Adulthood. We really strive hard here at Emory to create independent, self-reliant adults. And I know how hard it is, parent to parent. It's really tough, to trust your kid to, fall, to make mistakes and pick themselves back up. But it really is the best thing you can do. By all means, be there for them, lend support and so on. But if they're calling you every 20 minutes asking, what should they do about this or that, or you name it, let them figure it out for themselves. Make sure they know about the resources and the services we offer. The professionals are here and happy to help. But honestly, the best thing you can do for them is to trust them and let them become adults. Here at Emory University, we'll make sure that they don't slip through the cracks too badly, that nothing will be, a dangerous or irreversible mistake. But let them fumble through some things. They'll grow and they'll learn from
mistakes. That's what we look for.
Safe mistakes. That's exactly right.
I'll also add to this because
go ahead, Sherry.
We get lots of emails too saying, I'm just checking in. Don't tell my student I've emailed. And we chuckle about that one too. And we appreciate that you don't want to be overly helicoptery or lawnmowery or however we are now. But we encourage you to tell your students if you're reaching out, copy them on it, and do not be surprised if we respond back directly to your student. Because really at this point, we're trying to develop relationships with them and help them do the Google searches, write those emails to faculty or other people. And so again, we don't like to keep secrets from them. It's often really weird if they get a random email from Dean Dillard or Dean Obrentz and they go, how did you even know my name? So it is a lot easier if we say, your mom or your dad reached out and we're just following up. How can we help you? Because we often do want to hear from them directly.
We'll get Bridget to post the book name on the parent portal for you.
Well, Dan might have me initiating something with him about that book. So Dan, you mentioned it. So I've been working at the bookstore about maybe doing a book club. So I might have you as one of our facilitators. So this is what happens when you're together and people mention things.
I'd be happy to.
There you go. The one thing I want to mention is advice that was given to me is to perhaps ask your student when they come to you, because they will unload, is, well, what do you want to do about that? And then it really helps them with critical thinking. And that's what we're hoping that happens through their college experience.
Okay, you can move forward, please.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things that we encourage you and your child to do is to look at the calendar on the college website. There's a lot of places you can see an academic calendar in the university, but a lot of them are for all students or other schools. And so the college site is the best place to look at an academic calendar. This year is an unusual year. Normally we have our calendars set 5 years in advance. And of course that didn't happen. And certainly there are going to be ongoing conversations about the spring semester that we can't answer right now, but we know that everyone is concerned about. So keeping an eye on this and looking out for messages about the academic calendar can be really helpful. This year, we are having students move out for the winter break right before Thanksgiving, and then there will be an extended final exam period during that November, December period. So please be aware of that time. We are meeting on Labor Day, which is unusual, and we're not having a fall break. So all of those things are new things on the calendar for us this year. I just want to thank you. I'll have Sherry close up, but I want to thank you for being supporters of your students and for helping us really help them be resilient, effective adults and to complete their education in a timely fashion.
Yes, thank you so much. I've been looking through the chat as well, so I'm equally as proud of all of you for your great questions, and encourage you to ask your students to ask those questions too if it's on their mind. I will say too that tomorrow is our final family program for the new student programs for orientations, and Bridget and I will have a little bit of a different format. We're actually leading a conversation with our Dean of Faculty, Carla Freeman, and her daughter, Alice, who's a college junior. And so you'll get to hear student perspective, a parent perspective, faculty perspective, all wrapped into one conversation. So if you can join us tomorrow at noon, we're excited to see you. As always, all of these are taped and will be put on our website so that you can play them back. Bridget, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
I feel what you all have said, and we appreciate all you're doing. And we know that having a child go to college during a pandemic is not what you had in mind a year ago, but we are so fortunate to have you and be here together. And you just keep the questions coming, and we're going to help your students as they navigate this. But thank you all.
And I am going to catch the question that is in the chat. The students can leave things in their dorm room over the winter break. We talked about move out, the residence halls closed, but you can leave your items over the break.
And we will have lots and lots of information directly to them as we get closer to that date.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, everyone. Have a great Thursday. Thanks for joining us.
See you later.
Thank you.